Will you all please be upstanding for His Worship the Mayor?
Yeah. Councillors, if I can just remind you that this meeting is going to be webcast in accordance with the Council's policy, so please be aware that you are being recorded. If you are going to speak, can you please ensure that you speak through the chair and indicate that you wish to speak, and then speak through your microphone, and that will include if you are moving or seconding a motion. I should say to anybody in the public gallery that by sitting in the public gallery you also consent to the publication of your image on the local authority's website. Can I also ask you please to turn off all mobile phones, because even when they're on silent mode they will interfere with the sound system. Thank you.
Well, good evening everybody. Can I welcome you to the full council meeting? And before we start, can I welcome Mike O'Neill and Sean Slater to the first full council meeting. We'll now go on to item number 1, apologies for absence.
Yes, Mr Mayor, we've had apologies from councillors Paul Brown, David Davis, Kate Moran and Leighton Smart.
Item number 2, declarations of interest, and can I refer you to the notes over of A and B? We go to the open session, minutes of previous meetings. Minutes of meeting Monday 13th of April 2015 of Audit Committee. Can someone propose? Second?
Second, Mr Mayor.
I put it to the vote. That's passed. Minutes of meeting Monday 20th of April 2015 of Rights of Way Committee. Can someone propose?
I'll move, Mr Mayor.
Second.
I'll put it to the vote. That's passed. Item number 5, minutes of meeting Monday 20th of April 2015 of Scrutiny Schools.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
I put it to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 6, minutes of meeting 22nd of April 2015 of Cabinet.
Yes, move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
I'll put that to the vote. And that's carried as well. Item number 7, minutes of meeting Wednesday, 22nd of April 2015 of full council.
Yes, move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
I'll put that to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 8, minutes of meeting Wednesday, 29th of April of Planning, Regulatory and Licensing Committee.
Councillor Clough.
I move, Mr Mayor.
Second.
And that goes to the vote. That's carried. Item number 9, minutes of meeting Tuesday, 5th of May 2015 of Scrutiny, Social Services and Social Regeneration.
Can I move, Mr Mayor?
I'll put that to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 10, minutes of meeting Wednesday, 6th of May 2015 of Cabinet.
Yes, move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Can I ask you all to vote, please? And that's carried. Item number 11, minutes of meeting Monday, the 11th of May 2015 of Scrutiny Customer Services.
Happy to move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
We'll put it to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 12, minutes of meeting Tuesday, 12th of May 2015 of Scrutiny Chief Executive, including crime and disorder.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Put it to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 13, minutes of meeting 18th of May 2015 of Scrutiny Schools.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Put it to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 14, minutes of meeting Tuesday, 3rd of March 2015 of Sacre.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Put it to the vote. And that's carried. Item number 15, minutes of meeting Wednesday 20th of May 2015 of the annual general meeting. Can I have a proposer,
Yes,
please?
move, Mr Mayor.
Second, Mr Mayor.
And that's carried. Item number 16, minutes of meeting 22nd of May 2015 of licensing committee. Can I have a proposer, please?
I move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Can we put that to the vote? And that's carried. Item number 17, minutes of meeting Wednesday 27th of May 2015 of the licensing committee.
I move, Mr Mayor.
We'll put that to the vote. Right, we go on to the committee reports now. Item 18, amendments, appointments to committees and committee structure 2015-16. I believe it's Councillor Phil Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As it says, the purpose of the report is to consider the appointments to committees for the municipal year of 2015-16. Perhaps you should read perhaps amendments to the appointments, because the introduction is obviously at the... That's not my phone, I promise. Mine's switched off. At the annual meeting on the 20th of May, the actual appointments were approved subject to any minor amendments. I think the key change is the fact that the scrutiny committees have now changed not only in title but also in format and in function. Terms of reference actually to be prepared for most of the scrutiny committees. That follows a report published by the chairs of the audit committee and the scrutiny committees, for which I thank them for their work in putting together a report, and it is attached as an appendix to this report, so you can see where we're coming from, and that was an excellent piece of work, thank you. So under 2.1, we changing the chief executives. It'll now become the governance, performance, business change and corporate services scrutiny committee, just a small title. 2.2, schools learning scrutiny committee becomes learning and layskip scrutiny committee. 2.3, social services and social regen scrutiny now becomes the social services scrutiny committee. Over the page 50, just a slight amendment here, Mr Mayor. 2.4, customer services scrutiny committee will now be known as the neighbourhood services and public protection scrutiny committee. We will leave out the incorporating crime and disorder in the title, although it will be in the terms of reference. 2.5, we will be forming a new scrutiny committee, and that's to be called the Regeneration Planning and Countryside Scrutiny Committee. The chairmanship of that new committee, as per paragraph 2.6, falls to the independent group. The section 3 chair deals with really only those changes to the structures. So, for example, we haven't given the full membership of schools nor social services because basically the members stay the same. The important one there probably is 3.1.1, which is the governance performance, and that now will be comprised of chairs and vice chairs of the other scrutiny committees. So it'll be a fairly large committee, but it's the chairs and vice chairs of all the other scrutiny committees. I think there's an error there again. The first meeting is not, well, it's moved from the 23rd to Tuesday the 30th of June. It's not the 29th. Neighbourhood Services Committee 3.1.2. We say there is that it really is the existing customer services scrutiny committee members, so they've just fallen from the previous one into there now. The new one then is the Regeneration Planning and Countryside Scrutiny Committee, as in 3.1.3. Dates are set out there, although I believe that at the first meeting they can actually agree start times and the rest of it. Is that correct? Yeah. What is suggested there, apart from the chair, is that the membership actually drops down from the old Chief Executive Scrutiny Committee, and I'm advised that the councillor vacancy there will now be taken by Howard Barrett from the independent group. 3.1.4, Social Services. As a consequence of the resignation of an independent member, that vacancy will now be filled by Councillor Alan Jones. If I move us now, Chair, on to the Joint Scrutiny Committee 3.1.6, and yes, the membership will be, as my granddaughter says, big massive, because it'll be all the members of Scrutiny Committee sitting in one group, probably in the Millennium Stadium, for us to have our meetings. Standards Committee, sorry Chair, the next one is the Appeals Committee 3.1.9 on page 52, where the councillor vacancy will be filled by Councillor Clive Tydfil. Then there's a change in cabinet portfolios. Clearly the person who was appointed to the cabinet post is within the gift of the leader, and there's been a change in that the transformational cabinet post will no longer exist, and the member who was in transformational change is now becoming a member for social services, and that's Councillor Linda Matthews. Therefore, as a consequence of that, and I think whilst at the same time we've bolstered the scrutiny function by the additional scrutiny committee, we've saved a couple of shillings as well, because overall there is a net saving between the cost of a cabinet member and the cost of a chair of a committee. So there's a net saving of £4,000. Chair, if I can then move to recommendations and change the recommendations to read as follows. 8.1, the changes to scrutiny, audit and planning set out in paragraphs 3.1.1 to 3.1.7 be approved. 8.2, the membership of Standards and Appeals Committee set out in paragraphs 3.1.8 to 3.1.9 be ratified. And 8.3, the changes to the cabinet portfolios be noted. Subject to questions or comments, I move.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to second the Deputy Leader with the recommendations, but I'll keep some comments for the end of the debate.
Are we any questions? Councillor Mitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just ask, under 3.1.1, governance, performance, etc., etc., what's the cycle of the committee? Is it every 4 or every 6 weeks? Even though I understand my name is in there, Mr Mayor, I just wanted clarification of how that would look as far as the annual calendar is concerned.
With apologies to Councillor Mitten and the other members there, I believe that meeting will take place every 6 weeks.
Councillor Carter.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a quick one. Sorry, Phil, I'm just going back to 3.11, when you said the date is moving to Tuesday the 30th of June. Did you mention it? I've only just looked at it now, the Regeneration Planning and Countryside Scrutiny Committee is the 30th of June as well, at the same time.
We'll just need to rearrange that so that it fits into the cycle. I think what Councillor Phil Williams had picked up was what seemed to be an error just in the date. It may be that what we need to do is change the day rather than the date, and we'll just adjust that and let everybody.
Just talking to Chris here, I think the situation is, rather than saying Tuesday the 30th, it's actually Monday the 29th. So just for the record, I think it's the first meeting, all members of that committee, please note it will be Monday the 29th of June and Mondays thereafter. Obviously you can change that at your first meeting.
Any other questions? Any comments? Leader, I believe you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have seconded the recommendations. If nobody else wants to speak, can I first of all say, Mr Mayor, that I'm sure that all members of the independent group will be absolutely delighted that the cabinet is being reduced by one member, given their comments last year. There is a saving to the public purse of some £13,000, but I would like to thank Councillor Matthews for the role that she undertook last year as member for transformational change. That £13,000 was a very wise investment, and it turned out to be the right decision, in as much as Councillor Matthews was responsible for bringing in almost £4 million worth of savings to this authority. So I don't think anybody could argue that that was in fact money wasted. Can I also congratulate Councillor Gareth Jones in taking up his new post as chair of the new committee. I'm sure Councillor Jones will make a considerable impact in holding the executive of this council to account, and I wish you well in that, Gareth, and look forward to working with you. Mr Mayor, and finally, can I just say that having made his appointment, I hope the Leader of the Opposition doesn't get the same level of criticism from his group that I received last year, now that another one of his members is entitled to receive a senior remuneration. I'm sure that won't be the case. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll put it to the vote. And that's been carried. We go to... well, it could be unanimous if you wanted. But it's item number 19, Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales, Annual Report 2015 to 16, to consider a report of the Chief Executive, and I believe it's Councillor Phil Williams.
Oh yeah, I was trying to vote there, Mr Mayor, so trying to speed things up a bit, I think. As you say, it's the purpose of the report is to inform councillors of the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales annual report regarding payments to local authority elected members and heads of paid service. In the introduction, you can see that this is actually the 7th report of the IRPW and the 4th since the local government measure extended the power to prescribe members' salaries. The 1.2 schedule must be maintained of the remuneration paid to members, and that actually will be dealt with later on as an information report in this council meeting, and that's agenda item 27. Paragraph 2.1, you see that the attached to appendix 1 is a list of the financial determinations, and I need to also refer you to appendix 2, which actually gives more detail in terms of the full list of determinations. 3.1, Chair, on page 68 is that the salary levels will be maintained at the band set in 2014-15, so there's no additional financial implication this year. And the recommendations on 6.1 are that the content of the report be noted, and the 6.2, the roles of Civic Head and Deputy Civic Head continue to be paid at level C within the approved range, as agreed to full council on the 23rd of April 2014, which was actually what was paid last year. And in moving those recommendations, Chair, can I say that members can in fact elect not to take the full amount of the prescribed value that's shown in the appendix 1. And indeed, I think in the council meeting in April, I think all members of council agreed that they would take a voluntary reduction, and I'm pleased to announce that currently, as of today's date, 30 of the 33 members of the council have in fact voted to take a 2% reduction in their salary, and I can confirm, since I look after the finances of the Labour group with Councillor Mansbridge, that every member of the Labour group has taken a reduction of 2%. The annual saving to the council of us giving up the 2% is of the order of £25,000 per annum, which I think again is a contribution being made. And if you recall, we all agreed to make the reduction in the light of what might happen in respect of the staff side, and I think we're all happy to continue with our reduction of 2%. With that little spiel and that little speech, Chair, I move recommendations 6.1 and 6.2 subject to questions and comments.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Are we any questions? Are we any comments? I'll put it to the vote. And that's carried. We go on to item number 20, the Frossafran Community Fund, to consider a report of the Chief Executive, and I believe it's the leader taking this.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. A straightforward report, Mr Mayor, to recommend the allocation of £30,412.84 to the Brecon Beacons Mountain Rescue Organisation from the Frossafran Fund. I move the recommendation 7.1 on page 77 of the report.
I second the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Any comments? I'll put that to the vote. And that's been carried. We'll go to item 21, the Corporate Plan Annual Delivery Document 2015-16, to consider a report of the Chief Executive, and again it's Councillor Phil Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the Corporate Plan Annual Delivery Document 2015-16. The introduction sets out why we're doing it in accordance with the Local Government Wales Measure 2009, and a reference on 1.3 to the corporate plan that was prepared for 2013-17, which identifies priority areas and the priority outcomes within the single integrated plan. Actually, it's for those of you who read this year's document, it actually is a excellent piece of work. And at this point, can I thank Ewan for leading on the work, because I have to yet again repeat that it's now clear, and I think we've had plaudits as well from external bodies. So thank you, Ewan, and thank you to the team, obviously, who've supported you, and to the others who've contributed. In paragraph 2, it sets out what the main changes are. 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5 take us through what the main changes are, again from lessons learned and taken on board by the team. And paragraph 3, there's no financial implications within the report, and the recommendation is on 6.1 on page 81, is that we approve the Corporate Plan Annual Delivery Document 2015-16. Subject to questions and comments, I so move.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Have we any questions? Any comments? I'll put it to the vote. And that's been carried. We'll move on to item 22. City deal approached by Cardiff City Council to consider a report of the Corporate Director, Place and Transformation. I believe that's the leader taking it.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, councillors will be aware from various media sources over recent weeks and months that Cardiff City Council has done considerable work on behalf of the South East Wales authorities to potentially attract a city deal for South East Wales. This report is to request that funds are made available by this council to participate in the formulation of a formal city deal proposal for the South East Wales region. Mr Mayor, this is the first stage of moving forward with the city deal. It will need commitment from Westminster, from Welsh Government and crucially from local government across the entire region. Whilst negotiations are very much at an early stage, on the 18th of March, the Chancellor announced we're giving more money to Wales, we're working on a city deal. Perhaps what he should have said is we've slashed the Welsh budget, we might give you some of it back if you're good boys and girls. Mr Mayor, this announcement will potentially have a massive impact on the Cardiff capital region in terms of unlocking significant money to support major investment and projects from which Merthyr Tydfil will benefit, irrespective of any local government reorganisation that may take place in due course. Mr Mayor, members will have read the report in detail and will have noted that city deals do not come without significant financial risk. And at this stage, there are many unanswered questions that all local authorities are asking, particularly around the long-term capital finance of such a project. Council will note that we are being asked to make a £20,000 contribution for preparation work to take the city deal proposal forward. And if Council agrees to help fund this work, there is still no guarantee of success. This is a very complex issue with lots of politics to be played at all levels of government, with significant risk to be completed and to be completed within relatively tight timeframes, given all the other matters that councils are having to contend with over the next few years. Notwithstanding, Mr Mayor, and taking full advantage of the window of opportunity that is currently open to us, I'm happy to move the recommendations at 8.1 that a financial contribution of £20,000 funded from earmarked reserves be approved, and 8.2 that this contribution be subject to all other authorities in the region agreeing to participate. Mr Mayor, I'm sure some members will have some questions. I've asked Mr Alan Owen to come along tonight to be able to answer those technical questions in detail. But as I say, I move the recommendations as set out in 8.1 and 8.2.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I take great pleasure in seconding the recommendations and would comment in doing that the report to me is very clear, albeit very involved, and I think for the sake of £20,000 at this stage, we really should be moving forward, as long as the other authorities play ball as well, which is what Alan has said in the report, and as far as the funding is concerned, as the leader says, it will come from UMAC reserves.
I'll take questions. Comments? Councillor Richard Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I begin by thanking the leader for his frank statement about the risk which might be involved in this. However, having said that, to spend £20,000 to develop the sort of investment that this area both needs and deserves is small fry, frankly. I think the risk is outweighed. I would agree with the Deputy Leader that the report is well written and well presented. It would be nice eventually to get some of the answers under 5.2 in terms of what is actually going to happen, but as far as Welsh Government is concerned, I won't hold my breath. So congratulations, gentlemen. Move on as quickly as we can.
Any other comments? Councillor Clive-Jones.
Just one, and I support the recommendations, but if you look under page 83, 1.1, the full name of this wonderful county borough is Merthyr Tydfil and not Merthyr.
Yeah, that's noted, yes. Any further comments? I'll put it to the vote. And that's been carried. We'll go to item 23, Help for Pensioners Scheme 2015, to consider a report of the Corporate Director, Place and Transformation. I believe it's the leaders taking this.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, Council will recall that last year the Help for Pensioners Scheme was subsumed in the Council's Revenue Support Grant, which allowed councils to decide whether or not they wish to continue to support the scheme in future years. Last year, Mr Mayor, Council will also recall that due to very severe financial pressures, it was resolved to reduce support from £100 to £50 per household. The decision to reduce this funding was not taken lightly, and at the same time we did say that if at all possible we would do our very best this year not to scrap the scheme, given that almost 1,000 pensioners could indeed benefit from it. Given the current financial difficulties that all councils across the country are facing, I'm advised by other leader colleagues from across Wales that many other councils are seriously considering scrapping this scheme from this year. Mr Mayor, as I pointed out earlier on, we did say we would do our very best to continue the scheme, and given this council's ethos of trying to look after the most vulnerable within our community, and given that current estimates suggest that keeping the scheme running at the current level will help some 840 or so pensioners, I'm happy to move that Council continues to support the scheme as operated in 2014-15 by providing financial assistance up to £50 per household as per the previous means-tested criteria. And just for further information, Mr Mayor, having discussed this matter with the Cabinet Member for Finance, my colleague, Councillor Phil Williams, and the Chief Finance Officer, that this funding can be accommodated from within the Council Tax Reduction Scheme.
Mr Mayor, I take great pleasure in seconding this one.
Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Richard Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Moving quickly as I am to pensionable age, and equally, Phil, I'm delighted that he's supporting it, and we will also.
Councillor Thomas, did you declare an interest over this?
Fortunately, the pensionable age passed a few years ago.
I'll put it to the vote. And that's been carried. Item 24, corporate sundry debt recovery policy. To consider a report of the corporate director, place and transformation. I believe it's Councillor Phil Williams taking that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is obviously the purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval for the implementation of an updated corporate sundry debt recovery policy, and as set out in paragraph 1, the policy was last reviewed in June 2011, so it's due for a refresh now, shall we say. There is a small typo that I must bring your attention to because it's one of my bugbears, and that's on page 105. 7.2 at the bottom of the page. The debt recovery section will utilise the services of the authorities. Internal enforcement is that authority is singular, so it's Y''S. I've also had a query from a colleague of mine in respect of does audit play a role in this process in terms of sundry debts, and that will be looked at by the officers, and should there be a role for audit, which I think there should be, it will then be incorporated into the policy, Richard. So having said that, the recommendations 5.1 and 5.2 are on page 96, subject to comments and questions. I move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? No. Any comments? I'll put it to the vote. And that's been carried. We go now to information reports. Item 25, Frossa Fran Community Fund, 6th monthly to receive a report of the Chief Executive. I believe it's Councillor Phil Williams again.
It is an information report, Mr. Mayor, so I think we just move on this one. I actually want to comment on the next one. If I misled you, I apologise.
Yeah, item number 26, representatives to other bodies, 2015-16, to receive a report of the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one alteration to make on page 122. That's the 5th row down, Merthyr Care and Repair Management Board. Councillor Chris Barry should be read in place of Councillor David Jones. Apart from that, Mr. Mayor, it's as laid before you.
Thank you. And can we just note item number 27, remuneration paid to members, 2014-15, to receive a report from the Chief Executive. Right. Item number 28, to deal with any other urgent business or correspondence. We have none. And 29, to receive communications from His Worship the Mayor. I have none. So, good night, ladies and gentlemen.